The rain hammered against the bedroom window as Michael sat on the edge of the bed, his world crumbling around him. Sarah stood across from him, mascara streaking down her cheeks, her hands trembling as she clutched a tissue. "It meant nothing," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Michael, please. You have to believe me." He couldn't look at her. Instead, he stared at his wedding ring, turning it slowly around his finger. 15 years. 15 years of marriage, 2 beautiful children, a home they'd built together brick by brick. And now this. How long? His voice came out flat, emotionless. He'd cried earlier, alone in his car after finding the messages on her phone. Now he just felt hollow. 3 months. Sarah sank to her knees in front of him, trying to catch his eyes. "But it's over. I swear to you it's over. I ended it today. I told him we could never speak again." Michael finally looked at her. The woman he'd loved since college, the mother of his children, suddenly seemed like a stranger. "Who is he?" "It doesn't matter. Who is he, Sarah?" She flinched at the steel in his voice. "Someone from work. David. He was just there when things got hard between us. When you were working late, when we were fighting about money, about the kids. He listened. I would have listened." Michael's composure cracked slightly. "I'm your husband. That's what I'm supposed to do." "I know." She grabbed his hands desperately. "I know, and I'm so sorry. I was weak and selfish and stupid. But Michael, I love you. I love our family. I don't want to lose you. Please don't let this destroy us." Upstairs, he could hear their children sleeping. Emma, 12 years old, who still asked him to check for monsters under her bed. Jake, 8, who worshipped his father and wanted to be just like him when he grew up. The thought of their family splitting apart, of disappointing them, of becoming another divorce statistic made him feel physically ill. "I need time," he said quietly, pulling his hands away from hers. "I can't just. I need to think." "Okay." Sarah nodded frantically. "Yes, okay. Take all the time you need. But please, Michael, we can fix this. I'll do anything. I'll go to counseling, I'll quit my job, whatever you need. Just don't give up on us." He spent that night in the guest room, staring at the ceiling until dawn broke through the curtains. He thought about his parents, married for 42 years before his father passed away. He thought about the vows he'd taken, for better or worse, in sickness and health. He thought about studies he'd read claiming that couples who survived infidelity often emerged stronger. Most of all, he thought about Emma and Jake, and how much they needed both their parents. Over the next few weeks, Michael watched Sarah carefully. She showed him her phone whenever he asked. No password. Complete transparency. She'd quit her job and found a new position at a different company. She went to individual therapy and begged him to join her for couples counseling. She wrote him letters, left him notes, cooked his favorite meals. She was really trying to make amends. The therapist, Dr. Chun, told him that forgiveness was possible but would take time. Trust is rebuilt through consistent action over extended periods, she explained during one of their sessions. Sarah has broken that trust, and now she needs to earn it back. But Michael, you also need to decide if you're truly willing to forgive, or if you're just going through the motions. Late one night, after a particularly good day where they'd laughed together for the first time in months, Michael made his decision. He found Sarah in the kitchen, and when she turned to face him, hope and fear mingled in her eyes. "I want to try," he said simply. "For us. For the kids. But Sarah, if you ever, and I mean ever, betray me again, we're done. No second chances. No discussion." She flew into his arms, sobbing with relief. "Never," she promised against his chest. "I swear on everything I love. Never again." He held her, wanting desperately to believe her, to believe that their love was strong enough to survive this wound. Behind them, the kitchen clock ticked steadily forward, counting down to a future neither of them could yet see. 6 months passed like walking on eggshells. Michael tried, genuinely tried, to move forward, but the wound Sarah had inflicted refused to fully heal. There were good days when they laughed at dinner or curled up on the couch watching movies like they used to. But there were also dark days, when a notification on her phone would send his heart racing, Or when she came home late from an errand and he'd find himself calculating the minutes, wondering where she'd really been. "You're doing so well," Dr. Chun told them during a Thursday afternoon session. "The fact that you're both still showing up, still doing the work, that matters. Healing isn't linear, Michael." He nodded, wanting to believe her. Sarah reached for his hand, and he let her take it, feeling the familiar warmth of her palm against his. At home, life had found a new rhythm. Sarah was hypervigilant about transparency. She left her phone unlocked on the counter, texted him updates throughout the day, came straight home after work. She'd reconnected with old friends, trying to rebuild a social life that didn't involve her former coworker. She volunteered at Emma's school and coached Jake's soccer team on weekends. To anyone looking from the outside, they seemed like they were making it work. But Michael couldn't shake a nagging feeling, an instinct honed by years of reading people in his work as a corporate attorney. Something felt off, though he couldn't quite identify what. Sarah was almost too perfect, too careful. When he'd catch her lost in thought, she'd snap back with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Dad, is Mom okay?" Emma asked one Saturday morning while they made pancakes together. Sarah had gone for a run, another new habit she'd picked up. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Emma shrugged, flipping a pancake with the concentration of a surgeon. "She just seems, I don't know, different, sad. Maybe, even when she's smiling." Kids notice things adults tried to hide. Michael kissed the top of Emma's head. "Your mom's fine. We're all fine." But Emma's observation stuck with him. That evening, after the kids were in bed, he found Sarah on the back porch, staring at her phone. She quickly locked the screen when she heard him approach. "Just checking work emails," she said automatically, but something in her voice rang false. "On a Saturday night? New job, want to make a good impression." She smiled, setting the phone face down on the table between them. "Want some wine? I could open that bottle we've been saving." He studied her face in the porch light, searching for signs of deception. But Sarah had always been good at hiding her feelings when she wanted to. It was one of the things that made her such an effective marketing director. She could project whatever image the situation required. "Sure," he said finally, deciding to let it go. Maybe he was being paranoid. Maybe the trauma of her betrayal had made him see threats where none existed. The next few weeks continued in the same vein. Michael tried to suppress his suspicions, to trust the woman he'd forgiven. But small things kept catching his attention. Sarah laughing quietly at her phone in the bathroom. A new password suddenly appearing on her laptop, for work security. Errands that took slightly longer than they should. Then came the incident with Rachel. Rachel had been Sarah's best friend since college, her maid of honor at their wedding. She called Michael one Tuesday while he was at the office, her voice tight with stress. "Michael, I need to talk to you about something. Can you meet me for coffee?" His stomach dropped. "Is Sarah okay? The kids? Everyone's fine. Just, please, I need to tell you something in person." They met at a cafe downtown, Rachel's usual warm demeanor replaced by visible discomfort. She twisted her coffee cup in circles, not meeting his eyes. "I don't know if I should be doing this," she started. "Sarah's my best friend. But you and those kids. You deserve better than this." Michael felt ice forming in his chest. "Rachel, what's going on?" She took a deep breath. "Sarah asked to borrow my phone 2 months ago. Said hers was getting repaired and she needed it for work calls. I didn't think anything of it. Just gave her my old phone I keep as a backup." Rachel finally looked up, her eyes filled with guilt and sadness. "Last week, I found it in her car when I borrowed it. Michael, there were messages. Hundreds of them. All to David." The cafe seemed to tilt around him. "You're sure?" "I'm so sorry." Rachel pulled out her old phone, sliding it across the table. "I didn't read most of them. Couldn't. But Michael, they never stopped talking. She's been using my phone this whole time to stay in contact with him." He stared at the phone like it was a snake. Part of him wanted to throw it away without looking, to preserve the fragile peace they'd built. But he'd made himself a promise 6 months ago, no more living in denial. With shaking hands, he opened the messages. Michael sat in his car outside the cafe for nearly an hour, reading through months of messages that shattered every promise Sarah had made. The conversations weren't just casual check-ins. They were intimate, filled with the same sweet words and inside jokes she used to share only with him. Plans to meet during her errands. Complaints about how hard it was to pretend everything was normal at home. Declarations of love that made his stomach turn. The worst part wasn't the continuation of the affair itself. It was reading how she described him. Patient, trusting, naive Michael who believed every word she said. They'd laughed about it, about how easy it was to fool him, how his forgiveness had given her exactly what she wanted. Both lives. The stability and respectability of marriage, and the excitement of her affair. One message in particular burned itself into his memory. He's trying so hard to fix us, and I do love him for that, but it's not the same as what we have. I just need more time to figure this out. Please be patient with me. I promise we'll find a way. Michael had represented enough divorce cases to know that this level of betrayal was fatal to a marriage. But knowing it professionally and feeling it personally were entirely different experiences. His hands gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white, rage and hurt warring inside him in equal measure. He couldn't go home yet. Not like this. Not when he wanted to scream, to break things, to demand answers he already knew Sarah wouldn't give honestly. Instead, he drove to his brother's house across town. James took one look at his face and poured 2 glasses of whiskey. What happened? Michael told him everything. The original affair, the forgiveness, the therapy, and now this devastating revelation. James listened without interruption, his expression darkening with each detail. What are you going to do? James asked when Michael finished. I don't know. Michael downed the whiskey, welcoming the burn. Part of me wants to confront her right now, throw her out of the house. But the kids need stability, James said firmly. And they need to see that actions have consequences. You think it's better for Emma and Jake to grow up watching their mother disrespect their father? Watching you accept being treated like this? Michael knew his brother was right. He'd been so focused on keeping the family together that he'd forgotten what kind of example he was setting. What would he tell Emma if, years from now, her partner cheated on her? Would he advise her to forgive blindly? To accept empty promises? I need to be smart about this, Michael said, his legal training kicking in despite his emotional turmoil. Document everything.
Sécure Finance.
Talk to a lawyer before she knows anything is wrong. Over the next 3 weeks, Michael became someone he barely recognized, cold, calculated, strategic. He consulted with the best divorce attorney in the state, a sharp woman named Victoria Chan who'd seen every dirty trick in the book. He quietly organized their finances, protecting his assets and the kids' college funds. He gathered evidence, documenting Sarah's continued lies and betrayals. With this evidence and her continued infidelity, we can make a strong case for primary custody, Victoria explained during one of their meetings. Especially since you've been the more present parent. Your work allows more flexibility than hers. Correct. Yes. Michael had always been the one to coach Jake's baseball team, to help with homework, to stay home when the kids were sick. Sarah's demanding career had meant he'd naturally fallen into the role of primary caregiver, even before the affair. Good. And you want to proceed with filing. Michael thought of Emma and Jake, of the life they'd known. Then he thought of that message. It's not the same as what we have. Sarah had made her choice. She'd chosen David over her family, over her vows, over every promise she'd made during those tearful weeks of reconciliation. Yes, file the papers. At home, Michael maintained the facade. He went through the motions, family dinners, help with homework, movie nights on the couch. Sarah seemed pleased with how well they were doing, commenting to Dr. Chan during their therapy sessions about how their intimacy was returning, how grateful she was for his forgiveness. The lies came easily to her now, smooth as silk. Michael wondered how he'd ever believed anything she said. One evening, while Sarah was putting Jake to bed, Emma found him in his study. His 12-year-old daughter had inherited his analytical mind, and she'd been watching him carefully. Dad, something's wrong. I can tell. He looked up at his daughter, so young but already too perceptive for her own good. He couldn't lie to her, wouldn't build his relationship with his children on the same foundation of deception Sarah had chosen. "Things are going to change soon, sweetheart," he said carefully. "But I need you to trust me. Whatever happens, your mom and I both love you and Jake very much. That will never change." Emma's eyes filled with understanding beyond her years. "You're getting divorced, aren't you?" Michael pulled her into a hug, feeling her thin shoulders shake with silent tears.
"I'm sorry."
"Is it Mom's fault?" He chose his words carefully. "Sometimes adults make choices that hurt the people who love them. Your mom made some choices that hurt our family. But that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. But she hurt you." "Yes, she did." Emma pulled back, wiping her eyes with fierce determination. "Then I'm glad you're not staying. Jake and we see more than you think. We need you to be happy, Dad." The papers were served the following Tuesday. Sarah's face when the process server handed her the divorce papers was something Michael would never forget. She'd just gotten home from work, still in her professional blazer and heels, calling out a cheerful greeting as she sorted through the mail. Then the doorbell rang. Michael watched from his study as she signed for the envelope, saw her expression shift from confusion to horror as she read the contents. She stood frozen in the doorway for a long moment before slowly closing the door and looking around wildly. Her eyes found him through the study door. "Michael!" Her voice cracked. "What is this? What's happening?" He emerged calmly, having rehearsed this moment in his mind 1,000 times. "It's exactly what it looks like. I'm divorcing you. But we've been doing so well. I don't understand. We've been happy, haven't we?" The panic in her voice was real, but so had been her tears 6 months ago when she first promised to change. "Have we?" He pulled Rachel's old phone from his pocket and set it on the entry table between them. "Would you like to explain this?" The color drained from Sarah's face. She reached for the phone with shaking hands, her mouth opening and closing without sound. "That's not. I can explain." "Don't." His voice was quiet but firm. "I've read every message, Sarah. Every lie, every plan, every time you laughed about how easy it was to fool me. I'm done with explanations." She started crying, the same desperate tears she'd shed before, but they bounced off him now like rain off stone. "Michael, please. I made a mistake. I was gonna end it, I swear. I just needed time." 6 months wasn't enough time? His calm was beginning to crack, anger seeping through. 6 months of therapy, of me trying to trust you again, of sleeping next to you every night while you texted him on a burner phone? How much time did you need, Sarah? "I'm sorry." She reached for him, but he stepped back. "I'm so sorry. I know I screwed up, but we can fix this. We fixed it before. We didn't fix anything before. I forgave you while you were still betraying me. The only difference now is that I know about it." He picked up the papers she'd dropped. "You have 30 days to find a new place to live. My lawyer will be in touch about the details. The kids are upstairs. I've already talked to them." This was partially true. He'd prepared Emma and would talk to Jake tonight. "I'm filing for primary custody. Given your continued infidelity and deception, my lawyer is confident we'll get it." Sarah's grief morphed into something sharper. "You can't take my children away from me." "I'm not taking them away. You threw them away when you chose David over this family. Multiple times." Michael felt exhausted suddenly, drained by months of pretending. "You could have had everything, Sarah. You had a husband who loved you, beautiful children, a home. But it wasn't enough. You wanted both lives, and now you have neither." The next few months were brutal. Sarah fought the divorce viciously, hiring an aggressive attorney who painted Michael as controlling and vindictive. But the evidence was overwhelming. Months of documented lies, the continued affair, character witnesses who testified to Michael's devoted parenting versus Sarah's frequent absences. The worst part was watching his children navigate the chaos. Jake struggled in school, his grades dropping as he acted out in class. Emma became withdrawn, spending hours in her room. Michael enrolled them both in therapy, determined that they wouldn't carry the scars of their mother's choices into their adult lives. Sarah's relationship with David imploded spectacularly 2 months into the divorce proceedings. Turns out, the excitement of an affair loses its appeal when reality sets in. David had never intended to leave his own wife, a fact that became clear when she discovered the affair and gave him an ultimatum. He chose his marriage, leaving Sarah alone with the wreckage she'd created. She tried to come back, showing up at the house at odd hours, begging Michael to reconsider. "I've lost everything," she sobbed one night on the front porch. "My job, my friends, David, everything. And it's all my fault. Please, Michael. Don't I deserve another chance?" He looked at this woman he'd once loved more than anything, and felt only a distant pity. "You had another chance. I gave you everything I had, and you threw it away. I hope you find happiness someday, Sarah, but it won't be with me." The divorce was finalized on a cold December morning, exactly 1 year after Sarah's original confession. Michael was awarded primary custody, with Sarah getting alternating weekends and holidays. She kept her car and retirement account. He kept the house and most of the savings. The judge's ruling was stern, noting Sarah's continued pattern of deception as a factor in the custody decision. Michael walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter than he had in months. His lawyer, Victoria, shook his hand firmly. "You did the right thing. Your kids will thank you someday." He hoped she was right. 2 years later, Michael barely recognized his old life. The house that had once felt like a tomb of broken promises now rang with genuine laughter. He'd repainted every room, replacing the neutral tones Sarah preferred with warmer colors that reflected his personality. The backyard had a new deck where he grilled on weekends. Photos on the walls showed honest smiles, hiking trips with the kids, Jake's baseball victories, Emma's 8th grade graduation. Jake, now 10, had weathered the storm better than Michael had feared. He was thriving in school again, his natural cheerfulness restored. He rarely asked about the divorce anymore, accepting their new normal with the resilience of childhood. His relationship with Sarah during her weekend visits was cordial but distant, the price of her choices. Emma, at 14, was a different story. She'd grown into a fierce, independent young woman who looked at the world with clear eyes. She kept her mother at arm's length, polite but cool during visits. Michael never encouraged this distance, but he understood it. Emma had seen too much, understood too much. She'd chosen which parent deserved her trust. "Dad, there's someone at the door for you," Jake called one Saturday afternoon. Michael was in the garage, organizing tools while music played from his phone. A small pleasure he'd rediscovered, existing for himself not just as half of a failed marriage. He walked to the front door to find Lisa Martinez, Jake's teammate's mother, holding a casserole dish. They'd been friends for years through the kids' sports, but something had shifted in recent months. She smiled, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "I made too much lasagna again. Thought you and the kids might want some." It was a thin excuse, she was a portion control expert. But Michael had stopped overthinking kindness. "That's really thoughtful. Want to stay for dinner?" The kids would love to see Sophia. Her daughter was in the car, and soon the 4 of them were in the kitchen, the kids setting the table while Michael and Lisa fell into easy conversation. It felt natural, comfortable, nothing like the electric tension of new romance, but rather the warm recognition of genuine compatibility. Emma caught his eye and gave a subtle thumbs up. His daughter had been encouraging him to date again, insisting he deserved happiness. He'd been resistant at first, but watching Lisa laugh at Jake's terrible jokes, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. After dinner, while the kids played video games in the basement, Lisa helped him clean up. "I've been wanting to ask you something," she said, drying a plate with careful attention. "Would you want to get coffee sometime? Just the 2 of us." "I'd like that," Michael replied, surprised by how much he meant it. She smiled, and it reached her eyes. No deception, no hidden agendas, just honest interest. "Great, it's a date." Meanwhile, across town, Sarah sat in her 1-bedroom apartment scrolling through social media. Her feed was a minefield of painful reminders. There was Michael at Jake's baseball game, arm around their son's shoulders. Emma at her school dance, beautiful in a blue dress, the photo posted by Michael with a proud caption. The kids on a camping trip last summer, roasting marshmallows with their father. She'd been effectively exiled from the life she'd destroyed. Her weekends with the children were strained, marked by Jake's polite distance and Emma's barely concealed resentment. They went through the motions, movies, meals out, but the easy intimacy they'd once shared was gone, replaced by the formal interactions of people who no longer quite knew each other. Her career had suffered too. The affair with David had become office gossip, forcing her to leave another job. She'd landed at a smaller firm with less pay and fewer prospects. Most of her friends had sided with Michael or simply drifted away, unwilling to watch her self-destruction. Rachel hadn't spoken to her in over a year. David was a distant memory now, their affair revealed as the hollow thing it always was. Without the thrill of secrecy, they'd had nothing. He'd gone back to his wife, and Sarah had been left to face the consequences of her choices alone. She came across a new photo, Michael at a school fundraiser with Lisa Martinez. They weren't touching, but something about their body language, the way they stood close together, told a story Sarah recognized with sick certainty. He was moving on. The realization hit her like a physical blow. For 2 years, some foolish part of her had harbored hope that he might eventually forgive her, that they might find their way back to each other. But looking at this photo, she understood with crushing finality. She'd lost him. Not just the marriage, but Michael himself. His kindness, his steady presence, his unwavering love. The only man who had ever truly, deeply cared for her. Sarah thought about the path that had led here. The initial thrill of David's attention. The lies that came so easily. The way she'd convinced herself she could have everything. She'd wanted both lives, unable to choose between security and excitement, between responsibility and desire. In the end, her greed had cost her everything. She looked around her sparse apartment. Generic furniture, walls bare of family photos, silence broken only by the hum of the refrigerator. This was her life now. Not the nightmare she'd feared, but something worse. Ordinary loneliness. The mundane consequence of extraordinary betrayal. Her phone buzzed with a reminder. She'd pick up the kids next Friday at 6 p.m. 2 days with them, then back to this empty apartment. It would never be enough, but it was all she had left. All she'd left herself. Sarah closed the social media app and set down her phone. In the window's reflection, she saw what Michael must have seen during those last months. A woman who'd gambled everything on selfish desires and lost. The tears came then, not the manipulative sobs she'd used to sway him, but the quiet, honest grief of someone who finally understood what they'd destroyed. Across town, Michael tucked Jake into bed and said goodnight to Emma, who was already absorbed in a book. He poured himself a glass of wine and sat on the back deck, looking up at the stars. The night was cool and clear, full of possibility. His phone lit up with a text from Lisa. "Thanks for tonight. Can't wait for coffee." He smiled, typing back a response, feeling something he'd almost forgotten. Excitement about the future. The betrayal still stung sometimes, a scar that would never fully disappear. But scars were proof of survival, evidence that he'd endured and emerged stronger. Sarah had wanted both lives. Michael had built one worth living. And in the end, that made all the difference.